why do we not need to worry about screen time? Because that seems to be the metric that everyone's measuring the most.
Yeah. In short, Brock, that's the reason we've got caught up on the metric of the tool is because that's the thing that we can see, right? So I'm going to give you a little bit of a metaphor. When I'm educating, when I'm teaching parents, when I'm teaching professionals, I talk about a city park. So if you were to take your little children to the city park, you can see the dangers, you do a risk assessment, you understand the kinds of issues that are there because you've been to a city park, you've grown up playing on equipment, being given all of the stranger danger conversations. But when it comes to the digital city park, we haven't been watching, we haven't been present, and unfortunately that's taken place over 28 years. And many parents don't necessarily know the dangers that exist in a digital city park. And so what is currently happening is a bit of a chicken little effect. If we ban the technology, i.e. we say the digital city park is out of bounds, we resolve the problem. And then what happens is we get guidance saying, but actually you can have this amount of screen time, this amount of device time, this amount of XYZ. And we're focusing on the tool, not the medium. And what I've been dealing with for 15 years are the problems that we face that I call cyber trauma. They're generally the content, the people, the spaces. It's all about the map and the terrain, to use a kind of NLP term. We're just focusing on the wrong metric. And as that video says, I purposefully emphasised the word time in terms of screen time. It's the wrong metric. If the park is dangerous, you wouldn't allow your children in there for an hour. But if it was clean, if there was a steward or a police officer or a warden and things were cleared up, people were paying attention to the children, making the environment safe, you would allow your children more time. So it's an irrelevant factor in many of the cases.
Yeah, as someone who grew up playing in a ton of parks, I appreciate the metaphor. So what can we, like, what do we focus on then if it's not just about time? Like, I understand it, like I spent a lot of time in parks growing up. Some places were great. And then, like, for example, there was a skate park. I didn't really like hanging out there because it was a bit dodgy. There was some things going on that I didn't like, and it had a very bad reputation. So, we stayed there when it was light. When it got dark, we left, we went home. So what is the kind of online, example of that? Like, how do we just, like, is it looking at, okay, don't go here, don't go there, don't go there, but these places are fine?
Well, you gave a brilliant example there. I didn't go to the skate park because I didn't like it and there was dodgy people. So in the online safety space, we tend to talk about 4 C's of risk, which we talk about: content, contact, conduct, and commercialism. Certainly, you will understand the conduct side of things, because if you are an early gamer, there was, and there still is, an etiquette. There's a social norm to those environments. Excuse my French, but if you're behaving a bit of a dick in a first-person shooter and camping out, you are going to be evicted by your friends because they're going to say that's unfair play. If you are continuously sabotaging, the squad and what they're doing in a particular game, whether it's role-playing, whether it's first-person shooter, for example, you're going to be ejected by your peers because that kind of conduct isn't okay and it isn't warranted. So certainly, I would say, well, when we think about those kinds of risks, think about what are the things that might be, and I'm trying not to use scary type terms, but think about the things that might be a risk, a danger, as well as helping build resilience for your children. So really, I'd be saying to parents, so you need to understand the landscape. You need to understand the city park that your child's going into, so you can have conversations about the people, about the environment, and about the risks and dangers that exist. And unfortunately, what has happened globally is parents haven't been given the right information, probably because organisations, governments didn't necessarily know what all of the risks were, or weren't vested and trained in child development, because that is a huge bit that's missing from this space at the minute. Understanding how children coming into adult environments were going to use those spaces and what that might mean. So for me, the two types of risks that I really hunker down on, especially with parents, are the kind of content they might experience. So that's war, gore, violent content, graphic media, because that has a real impact in terms of trauma and PTSD type stress events on the body, which, downstream can have an effect on physical health as well as mental health. But also the kind of people who might contact your children, and those are what we call bad actors, nefarious characters, perpetrators of crimes against children, however you want to dress it up. They are people who are not interested in the welfare of your children, but how they can exploit them. That might be a cyber criminal. It might be somebody who is interested in sextorting a child. It might be somebody who wants to financially extort a child. And really, those are the dodgy people that you referred to at the skate park.
Yeah. It's kind of just hard to wrap my head around it personally, because like my childhood, I feel like I had the golden years, where we were able to roam around and jump on our bike, go down to a park, go to a skate park, whatever, and have fun with our friends, and then come home when it got dark before the lights turned on, or when they turned on, you sprint home. I look back at that now and I think it's just such a kind of different experience to what I see now. Maybe that still goes on in some places. And I grew up in Christchurch, New Zealand, very different to Sydney, Australia, much smaller. But, that's kind of a bit easier as a parent to see, okay, those are more just like physical threats. That's like a safety thing. How can we, lock that down? But online seems like this world that, like, where there's kind of so many question marks. You mentioned conduct and content. What were the other two C's? Commercialism?
Contact and commercialism. So
okay.
commercialism.
Can you expand on those two as well?
Yep. So commercialism is where children's data is either mined, collected, utilised to then target specific adverts. And if we bring this really up to date, you might be aware that ChatGPT said they were going to introduce adverts into their app. Now, here is something that really... I think we froze a second there. Yep. One of the things about ChatGPT is the introduction of adverts into its environment. One of the things I'm going to say is when you look at the ban that has currently taken place in Australia in terms of the access to social media, ChatGPT isn't technically social media. It's an AI companion. It's an AI bot. So children will be using that application. To use that application, they only need to be 13 years of age for data protection, and that goes around the world, which means that 13-year-olds could be in an environment where they can now be directly advertised and targeted to, or they can have their data sold if applications and platforms don't follow specific rules which go around the world. And unfortunately, depending on where an app is created, what rules exist in that country about data collection, about the information that children give them, that information can be sold on. And just to make it even more scary, why not? We're going full throttle here.
Let's go.
If those spaces are breached or attacked by cyber criminals, that data can then be taken and stolen and sold again for nefarious purposes in lots of other places.
So how do we prevent that without saying, just don't touch my phone, or you're never getting a phone? Because that's, like you said earlier, that's the easy fix. Just don't touch it. But then when they're 18 or 16 or, whatever age, let's say a parent says you can have a device, then it's just like, what is it? Just Hail Mary and just do whatever you want?
Yeah. So we need...
What's the strategy?
in simple terms, we need education and we need conversations. And the reason I say education is when we think of online or digital or cyber or whatever word we use, because the problem we have at the minute is there is a plethora of terms and it just makes the entire space confusing, siloed, difficult to have conversations around the world. So what I would be thinking here is online means any kind of internet ready device. That's the certainly in my academic definition of cyber trauma, I talk about an internet ready device, right? Which could be a Nintendo DS, it could be a Switch, it could be a flip phone, it could be a smartphone. It can also be your television, because televisions are now smart TVs in most cases around the world. So if we get rid of smartphones, or if we say let's not go on social media, all those other environments still exist. So certainly conversations, education, and we help children navigate those environments by thinking, again, with the metaphor, when you take a small child to a city park, you educate them. Don't go touching doggies without asking the owner. Don't run off where I can't see you. Don't go talking to that person. If somebody asks you to come and, go to their van and have sweeties, then you come and tell mummy or daddy or uncle or grandma or something straight away. If you see dog dirt on the ground, don't pick it up. Here are the dangers. Here are the strategies and solutions for how you stay safe, but how you alert me to danger. And we do the same for the digital.
Yeah. So, for example, can you share a couple of examples of rules online as well? Because, I completely understand the park ones, but online, is it, I don't know, if it asks for a password, don't put it in, or if it asks for payment details, don't add them in, or is it more complex than that? Is it more simple than that?
Have you got a 54-hour podcast? Okay, so certainly. I've raised two children with technology. There were mistakes, and one of the things that I would say is I made my castle, my home, tech-proof. I watched what they were doing. The computer was in our living room, and I watched how they engaged with things. Always talked to them, and when social media first came round and when we were talking about who people were online, I used to ask them questions like, how do you know who that is? How can you be certain? What other spaces or social media sites or ways could we check that person is who they say they are? Is it a scammer? How would you recognise a scam? How can you see that in your emails? What do we think about? And it was literally educating them in critical thinking skills. That's the bit about child development that's hugely missing from this space. We want children to recognise misinformation when us as the adults are probably the biggest culprits of sharing misinformation, and we expect children to have the same thinking skills that we do. So again, it's the idea of holding their hand and going with them. So in today's world, Roblox is very popular, Minecraft is very popular, Fortnite, very popular environments. I'm going to give you another metaphor. Think of those like shopping centres, shopping malls, depending on where you come from in the world. In those shopping centres, there are, for example, on Roblox, 3 million shops. In those shops are games which are developed by people who can upload their own version of a game. So it could be Squid Game, it could be Grow a Garden, or it could be come and do this really scary backdoor rooms environment. So I'd be saying, okay, is there a door supervisor at the shop? Who's in that shop that the child might talk to? What do I create in my real world, what I call the corporeal? In the corporeal world, what do I provide so my child can come and tell me if there's a problem? Because we need, without a doubt, open dialogue so that children can come and say, hey, this really dodgy thing happened, or I'm not sure what this is asking me for. And most of those cases, Brock, right, are what I call uh-oh moments. We have a built-in system that tells us when something isn't quite right, and children are master detectors of uh-ohs. What they need education and skills building around are the uh-oh moments and how they come and tell us. Because if we say, well, you shouldn't have been on it, rip the phone away, you're now grounded off it, or you can't go on that again for a week, children learn to become silent.
Yeah, that's, to be honest, it's quite scary. Like I remember when I was young, I played a game called Habbo Hotel. Have you heard of that? So
Yes,
I used to play that. It sounds like a very
Yep.
yeah. So I played that just randomly, and it sounds like a very ancient version of Roblox or something like that. But you're this
Yeah.
character and you go around, and I remember talking to random people, and I remember I actually had like a uh-oh moment where I don't know, it was like some other person like wanted to kiss me or something like that, and like you're just these figurines. And then they put like in writing, like asterisk kisses or something like that, or like asterisk holds hand. And I was like, man, this is so strange. So I got off. But it was I can't even remember if it was like a female or a male figurine. Like it doesn't really matter. But that was weird because you could go to places and swim, or you could go and I think you could actually buy things too. Like you had this kind of
Yep.
virtual life. And now it just seems like it's that on steroids. Like there's so many options. Now you can actually talk on headsets to people where this was just typing. It was much lower engagement. But even that was freaky as like I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe I was like 11 or 12, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So I mean, since that time, there's old school RuneScape. That was one that a lot
Oh
of young
yeah.
people played. Okay, so that's probably just tapped into your memory. Uh, I could certainly say that Sea Shanty is etched in my mind forever. And that's
I
the
don't know that
for
one.
those that don't know, that's the tune that goes. It plays constantly at the back end of RuneScape. But
Okay.
the
I
early
never got
days.
into RuneScape.
All right, okay. The early days of the internet were full of spaces that are mirrored today. So early forums is now mirrored by Reddit. These early kind of, they're known as MMORPGs, a lot of the games, in terms of multimedia online role playing games. And they're spaces where, like Habbo Hotel, you can converse with people from around the world. That's now been created in spaces like Fortnite, Rainbow Siege, Call of Duty, many of the spaces where the kids go. And you're absolutely right, they can put headsets on. And quite often I'm saying to parents, so do you hear what they're saying? Not your child, the other people. And quite often they go, no. So I say, so take the headset off. Learn what the conversation is like. Learn the lingo. Listen to the type of conversations that are taking place. You need to, and I know it can be incredibly annoying when you've got two children fighting over who's playing on what side of the screen, up or down, the screen peaking as it's called, plus the other people that they're talking to, that kind of level of conversation, all the bleeps and pings and bongs and bings and yeah. But it helps you understand the landscape.
So so on this level of, I guess games that are available now and how it's progressed, well, they're kind of more advanced versions of what we were dealing with earlier. How
Mm-hmm.
has cyber trauma or online bullying, and I may have got the terms wrong in that space, but like, how has that changed in the last 10 years? Or since,
Um,
going from those games to these games with the advancement?
So it has and it hasn't. To give you a quick definition, cyber trauma is quite a long academic proposition that I've made, but it's essentially any trauma that occurs from an online harm through an internet ready device. That can be carried out by a person. It can also now, as we are becoming fully aware, be carried out by an AI algorithm, large language model, bot, companion, whatever the terminology is that people are using. Um, what children do and use technology for in order to wind other children up, bully them, harass them, sometimes is done in a way that isn't always meant to harm the recipient or to cause them distress. It can be things like using Photoshop is now in 2026 using AI. You can continuously harass somebody in a game. You can scream and shout at them down their headset. You can send them offensive messages in direct messages, in game chat apps. You can continuously share images of children. You can create images of children. The way in which children bully is still the same. It's the technology allows the variance, the speed, the proclivity, and that is something where we need to think about, like the typology and the taxonomy. Again, a big problem in this space. So when we say cyberbullying, do you mean trolling? Do you mean a pile-on? Do you mean harassment? Do you mean flaming? Do you mean etc., etc., etc.? Because even cyberbullying has a myriad of different types. Stalking can be a version of cyberbullying if it's done covertly as well as overtly. And if I was to say to you, Brooke, there's like 67 different types of online harms that I can name. What I'm always interested in as a therapist working with the children is, and how was that for you? What was that experience like? How have you managed technology since that point? Because some children do become avoidant of the technology itself. And children will always children, people will always people. And actually, there are some adults that will do this. They will, purposefully sit in a computer game and tell children to say things that are racist that get them permabanned. They will tell them to go and take something from another player that then gets that child reported and booted out of the game, and so on and so on and so on.
That's that's so. I don't know. I don't know what sort of people are doing this sort of stuff. Like it just seems
Um, people,
like what the hell are you
people.
doing? You know?
Um, I think the difference is, and this is why I always talk about that those risks in terms of saying to parents, in a real world, in a corporeal city park, you can tell when an adult is trying to play in the same environment as a child. You can't always tell that in a digital environment. And there are some meanies. There are some real meanies that like to pick on children because it's good fun. And I often see that on YouTube videos, big streamers going in and playing Steal a Brain Rot, for example, on Roblox, and stealing from the children and getting a bit of a laugh out of it.
Man, I didn't even know about that. That's It seems like it's too far. Like surely YouTube would have a problem with that, right? Is there any way that they're picking up on that, or not really?
Um, Not really, but that person could also stream on Twitch. They could stream on different platforms. They could use something like this. They could do a live stream onto any of the social media channels. What's difficult is age gating and doing what's known as age assurance, which obviously Australia are trying to do at the moment in terms of you need to be 16 to go onto some of these environments. Therefore, how do we check a person's age? There are ways around it. And in the environments where children go to play games, there are always adults. And unfortunately, in the world of child sexual abuse and child abuse, children are often abused by grown up people.
Hmm. So, so how is this still once again the uh-oh moments that kids have to look out for? Because obviously, if an adult's coming up against a child, we're so much more well equipped with, you know, what a child is going to do or how they're going to act and how to manipulate around that. That
Hmm.
children may not even pick up on it.
Some children won't. Some children are very, very good bullshit detectors. The very fact that somebody is asking for something and their grammar might well be in the chat box extremely elegant and have, apostrophes and full stops. Children don't generally speak like that. So they are fairly good at detecting when it's one of the grown ups. Sometimes They will go and try and befriend. So I work a lot with children who game, and when they are gaming, they use their avatar to go up to another avatar and they will do specific movements. And it's understood in those games that this particular movement means friend, for example, in Gorilla Tag, for example, in VR. Certain movements that children do in Fortnite, some of the waves that they might do in other games. And generally, there is a reciprocity, but not always. And children very quickly learn their lessons about giving away their assets, asking for specific assets, and things like that within the game. Not always, though.
Yeah, I guess so. So on that, you mentioned how Australia is approaching this online problem.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on it? Like, do you think this is the right approach of saying, 16 below, no go, 16 and up, you're completely fine? And like, what are the other things to consider? Because as you mentioned earlier, ChatGPT isn't a social media tool and it's only
No,
13 plus. So technically a 13-year-old can use something like ChatGPT to be online.
no.
Yeah, can
In
no.
short, no. The reason is we we said a long, long time ago, no sex until you're 16. And then what we had to do and I know this because I used to be a relationship sex education teacher, is then we had to go and create sexual health services where, certainly in the United Kingdom, we will hand out contraception to 13 plus, because we know that younger than 16 engage in the behaviours that we said no to. We know that children under the age of 18 in the United Kingdom drink alcohol, even though the age of being able to go and purchase it and drink it is 18. We know that children are vaping and using cigarettes and driving and. What I think is a hasty decision has been made in an attempt to try and prevent some of the accidental happenings of children being contacted by adults for sextortion or happening upon certain types of content. The issue I've personally got is it's not been applied to the other environments, like we've just talked about: gaming, websites, children who are using Google Docs where people can contact each other, and Spotify. It's not been applied to video on demand services in many cases. It's just not comprehensive enough, because we're trying to age gate and pull back in a global, borderless issue. So I don't think it's the right approach. I think it's an approach that's being taken in an attempt to try and placate the panic.
Do you think it's a step in the right direction? Or do you think it should have
Oh yeah.
been like before doing anything, consider, okay, it's not just social media, it's other
Hmm.
aspects.
Yeah. We should have had these. I mean, this is the horse gate bolted, rearranged, a well-known sentence. The horse has well and truly gone. What we're now trying to do is attempt to put a guardrail around an environment that we don't necessarily know how to do that, because what we actually need is a global approach. What we currently have are country specific rules and regulations and the ways in which certain countries want to do this. For example, Finland or one of the Scandinavian countries wants to change it to 15. And as a child development specialist, I'm like, what's the difference between 15 and 16? Are we looking at chronology or are we looking at maturity? And what happens if you're in Finland or in Australia and you're allowed to access it? Well, who is going to regulate this? It just really, really hasn't been thought
Mm.
through. And it doesn't make sense when the server that provides the data connection is in one country, the hosting company is in another country, the platform developer lives in another country, and the children who use it live in another country. It just
Mm.
isn't going to work in a way that's going to protect children.
Yeah, and I guess like there's going to be so much imbalances in the world going from like different ages, and then they'll feel that that it's unfair if you live here and you can access this, but then you can't access this. But for example, how you were
Yep.
talking about Roblox and other games like that, can you still be playing that in Australia?
Yeah.
Is that like,
Yep.
so that's not considered social media at all? Yeah, it's highly social.
Yes. And you can share assets, you can talk to people, you can arrange to meet them on non-social media platforms. Yeah. It's
Right.
almost like it's almost like a good attempt with the right intent. And I'm not trying to kind of shame the approach here, but this is very similar to the Chicken Little. We're panicking. We're saying make it go away, and the reason people are trying to make it go away is because they're frightened. So if you kind of step back and do a bit of a meta perspective, people are frightened. They don't know how to monitor those digital city parks. They don't know how to make them safer. Sadly, the technology industries didn't make them safe enough for children in the first instance. And now we have government pointing towards tech companies pointing towards parents, parents pointing towards teachers, teachers pointing to, and this has been going on for 15, 20 years. And the children sit in the middle. And sadly, the perpetrators of crimes against children also sit in the middle, rubbing their hands, going, this lot couldn't organise a piss up in a brewery.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Hmm. It's such a tricky conversation to have, especially being a dad of two younger girls. I guess I'm personally invested in this conversation and that's why I was, when I was saying and I was reaching out, like I'm really interested in your work and I love what you're doing because, like I'm online, like you're online, like on
Mm-hmm.
social media, for example. But like I've always felt a bit different with social media because for me, there's always been a bit of a purpose behind it. It's always been to work, like
Yeah.
I want to share educational, content. I also want to, market what I do for work, transformations that I've
Mm-hmm.
achieved or pass on, valuable content. So when people do think of transforming their body, they consider working with me, like I've always felt like I'm not really perusing around trying to get up to mischief or anything like that. So I see social media in a very different light, where it's more of kind of like a game. It's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
like it's kind of outside of Brock. Like my personality, my identity isn't really, oh, what am I going to find on Instagram to watch and laugh and, send to my friends and stuff like that. I do that every now and then, but I'm more getting
Mm-hmm.
on there. Okay, I've made this video. There's captions. I'll put this at the start. I'll try to do a hook like it's a game for me. It's part of work. So I've never really,
Yep.
I guess, let's say, struggled with the online world, um, whatever platform I'm on. So I find that for me, I'm a little bit scared that I'm out of touch for, like, my kids are 1 and 3. I think I have a little bit of time, but I still want to be
Yeah, yeah.
ready, even though I'm on it. I still kind of have no idea of some of the terms you've been saying. Like you're kind of losing me with some of the online terms. So I don't want to
So
be, too far gone.
from one parent to another, you already have these skills, okay? And this is, if anybody takes anything from this conversation, what we do with our children is we talk to them about environments. We talk to them about how the world works, okay? So I'm going to try and do this in a really simple way. Let's talk about Peppa Pig or Bluey, right? Generally,
Bluey,
there
let's go,
are a
Bluey.
lot. Okay, so there are a lot of parents who are sitting down and watching some of this media on a television with their children, or they sit at the side of them whilst they're on their iPad. What I would be saying is, and I'm just going to give an example from Peppa Pig because I know Peppa Pig picks on her brother George quite a bit, right?
All right.
Why do you think Peppa Pig? Why do you think Peppa Pig does that to George? Why do you think she trips him up? That's not very kind behaviour, is it? Okay, what you're actually doing is setting the scene for the kind of content that your child might happen upon later on in these environments. Because as much as we try to regulate social media, others will crop up. You can talk about fairness. You can talk about nakedness in terms of, why does Kermit not wear any clothes, but Miss Piggy does in the Muppets? Why does Pooh Bear only have a t-shirt but no shorts? What we can do is then start to talk to them about appropriate and inappropriate clothing, appropriate and inappropriate conversations that might happen from the risk of contact, the risk of conduct, the risk of content. You begin to have conversations about those risks by doing it with daily examples. And that's really what I did with my children in terms of how do you know that? How do you know that's the truth? Well, the teacher said, okay, where did the teacher get their information from? How do we know that this specific video is truthful? And that's some of the things that we're really going to have to understand about AI content. Is it real? Is it made up? It
Mm.
happened to Andrew Huberman. I know that Andrew Huberman took legal action over it. I've seen that lots and lots of influencers are taken by these AI programs and are creating, here's a 6-week perfect body program, just sign up here. And actually, it turns out it was AI generated. It turns out to be a scam, and people give away their details because actually, as the adults, we need to learn this.
Yeah, well, I recently received a DM. It was yesterday, and some guy sent me a video, and and he was like, "Oh, look, creatine's bad for your kidneys." And there's a lot of research that says it it isn't bad for your kidneys unless you have potential kidney problems. So it's relatively safe. I've been taking it all my life. I've had no adverse effects, and the research is pretty strong on it. It's a really safe supplement, and it's one of the most well researched. So I watched the video, and I was like, it's okay. I'll give him this. It's relatively realistic, but I was like, it's an AI video. Like, this guy is not real. So his voice just didn't look like it matched. So for me, the was like pretty strong because I'm online all day as well. So, not online all day. Like, I post quite often, so I kind of know. So I looked on his page, and what I check for is like, there was really frequent posts, like, 3 or 4 a day. Most people aren't really pumping that much content out because that is a full-time job. So, mate, getting one out a day is a struggle. I was like, okay, these are alarm bells. And then it was just like the same guy, different green screens in the back, different, fake transformation photos. And then the script was like perfect the way that he was saying it. There was no ums and ahs. There was no this or that. And then I saw it just started like around December 2025, but he had like quite a lot of posts. And then I clicked on the link just to see where it was at. And I was like, okay, this looks like AI. So I said to him, I said to the guy that sent me a DM, I was like, can you not tell that this is AI? And he was like, oh no. But now that I look at it, I think it is. And I found quite a few of these. I've also found transformation posts that aren't real humans that people are claiming. And I've done react videos to them to kind of be like, hey guys, just watch out because this isn't real. Don't buy it, or, whatever, or just be aware. But even adults can't tell the difference. And like, to me, it's relatively obvious. And I'm not the most intelligent person in the world, but if other people are getting fooled, there's got to be a ton of other people getting fooled by AI.
Yeah.
In this way.
Yeah. Yep. So financial scams, giving away your information, lots and lots of the standard cybercrime approaches. Actually, for me, the one that I'm concerned about, and I think I reflected on this on the, again, there's a lot of new experts, and I'm using that term in air quotes, new experts talking about the digital space. And I find that they don't necessarily work directly with children. They don't necessarily understand the emergence of the technological space pre-1998, which is where I've been working. That kind of shows my age a little bit. But pre-1998, I was going into people's homes, helping set up computers and showing them, pretty much like the comedy program, the IT Crowd, saying, this is the internet. This is how you access it. This is what you can do on the internet. And the people that were like, oh, whoa. And that's where we're at now in terms of content influencers. But for me, and I did say we'd probably get round to this, so here it is. The issue I have is content that is being created about supplements, diets, food restrictions or food approaches, weight management, GLP, you name it. The health and wellness industry at the moment is full of AI crap. It's also full of plenty of influencers who are in it to how do I be
To
polite about
monetize
this?
their audience.
Yes, they're in it to scam you in terms of buy my book, buy my content, buy my product, which is sales. And sales has always been like that. However, the adults in the space at the minute have a responsibility to remember the internet is not just made for adults. There are children in the spaces. So certainly when I see your morning routine, you get up at this time, you do this, you take that, you take the other, you add this, you take that. By the time I'm done with my morning routine, if I followed all of the advice, it would be 10 o'clock at night. And
Time for
then
bed.
I'd have to get ready for bed doing the other, there's a lot of crap out there, and it's being given in lots of different ways. One, from a marketing perspective. Two, from a I just want views. Three, from a I don't care about who reads this as long as my counts go up. And this is
Mm.
where, again, I think my content is really, really kind of pulling in. Again, certainly with the technology thing, the celebrities that are suddenly parenting and digital technology experts, and this is what we're facing in terms of the panic that's gone on. And what I'm going to say for all of the parents here is take a step back. You already know how to parent. Going back to that thing that I talked about, help your children navigate this environment by taking an interest in what they're doing. Talk to them about the things that they're doing. And yes, it's boring. I say to parents, working with the kids in therapy, I might be told 3, 4, 5 times a week how to make a specific ender portal in Minecraft. And each and every time, I have to show the same enthusiasm, the same surprise, and the same interest in, oh, that's amazing. I didn't know you could do that, because that child needs somebody to be that interested. Even
Mm.
though I could build an ender portal in my sleep, it's one of those things that I know what it is that a child wants to show me, and then I will bring parents in and I'll say, okay, let's have a go on Fall Guys, which is an amazingly simple game, 2 buttons, and I say to parents, right, have a go at it. And when the parent says, oh, and I say, well, now you can understand children who are rage quitting, because that was a short game that you were taking part in. Again, that's one of the videos that kind of went viral because the kids were sharing it, not the parents, because they were like, this is what we're trying to educate. This is what we're trying to communicate. Take an
Yeah.
interest.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that's really helpful to walk away with. It's regardless of the situation that your kids are going through, although we're talking about online stuff today, it's
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like taking an interest and not losing that, being that irrelevant parent that doesn't know anything that's going on.
Yeah.
And just, yeah, sitting down with them, talking to them. Because at the moment, for example, for me, it's like reading books, asking, what my daughter did. Like if I go to work and I get home and put her down, like we do this thing, and I think it's quite common, but so we read a book, but then when we actually go to sleep, when I'm laying down with my daughter, we talk about her day. That's her favorite thing. She's like, can you
Mm-hmm.
hug me and talk about my day? So I don't actually know what she does during the day because I'm at work, but I know what I did with her before breakfast and before I leave. And then when I get home, so I kind of I FaceTime them every now and then during the day. So I go through that stuff as well, but I talk about the things that we were doing, and I don't know. I think that's a way for me at the moment. She's 3, but to stay relevant and to stay, okay, this is what we did, and we share stories, and I talk about why we did this
Mm-hmm.
and why we did that. And I think potentially it's the art of not losing that as they get older and older and older. And, you don't lie down and sleep with them and talk about their day, but you can still, I don't know, ask what they did with their mates potentially and just have a conversation. So it's not like
Yeah.
you're this, oh, dad's coming over. What should I say?
So a tiny little glib nugget, and something that I put in the books, and is check in on check in with your children. Don't check on them. There's a difference between, how did your day go? There's going to be phases where your child doesn't want to talk to you, and it comes back in grunts, and there are stages, but there is also something about how did your day go? That is a checking in. And there's a difference between how a child feels like you're being nosy to I genuinely have an interest. And most of the time, that is actually what I'm helping parents articulate between what happens when a child comes to therapy and what I help them work with. But also, I will say things like, well, do you even know what they do online? Do you know who they talk to? Do you know what their favourite game is? Do you know what their favourite avatar is? Do you know what their favourite social media platform is and why they like that platform over and above the others? Ask them.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen it too, and I'm sure you've seen it and people have seen it, but you can tell when a parent is kind of like one of the bros, like even if, or one of the sisses or whatever, like they're relevant. Just the way that they kind of act around them, like they're themselves and the child looks relaxed. And then you see other, and you can't judge from just one, interaction, but you can see other parents where it feels weird. It feels foreign. There's like a lot of distance, or there's like headphones in and walking
Yeah.
with the parents, and sorry, walking with the kid with headphones in and stuff. And there's this complete disconnect. And I don't know, for me as a parent that's kind of in the trenches at the moment, it becomes quite obvious what parents are, let's say regularly checking in versus parents that are quite distant.
But and I say but I tell the kids off for starting sentences with but. There is a, another thing, right? And I see this be at the moment in the United Kingdom. We are attacking parents like I don't know what. Children are not ready for school. They can't hold a pen. They can't use the toilet. Parents, you're always looking on your phone, and there's words coming up: phubbing, technoference. Again, words that make it sound really scary. And that's one of the reasons why I did my TED talk. Parents are also overwhelmed. And I have said this in, it was the first book. When a parent is about to become a parent, they're online because there's health advice, there's do this with your baby, here's how to get through the first feeds, here's this, here's that, here's the other. So for you, Brock, that might have been 300 friends on Facebook and all of your Instagram followers and. For your wife, it would have been all of these people, the people who come out, the health visitors, they're full of, the Facebook, do this, do that, do the other. Everybody is overwhelmed at the minute. We are saturated with guidance, advice, to-dos, not to-dos, have-to-dos, must-dos. And we are trying to meander our way through this. And most of the time, we're getting our information from an environment that is coming at us like, water out of the end of a fire hose. We just cannot sip at this. And then what we say is, and your children are now suffering because blah, blah, blah. We're all in this. And what happened 28 years ago is we walked into this without saying, hang on a minute, this water's a little bit wet. Maybe I need to go and perhaps put some swim shoes on or some shorts or maybe get myself a snorkel. We kind of walked into this environment like a tsunami. And now, because we're struggling, we're also panicking and we're saying, and we should take it away from the children. Actually, we all need the education around this space.
Yeah. Is there any data, just as you were talking about it, or are you aware of any of the effects of what adults have impact on their children with, like, how much they're on their phone? Because I see it a lot. Sometimes, like, I'm not perfect. It's tricky because I work on my devices, right? And for example, yesterday my kids were really sick. I had to do a lot of work. So I was meant to be at work, but I was at home to help my wife, but I had to be on my laptop at the dining table working. Like, it's hard for me to hide that unless I go into a room and I was just working in the living room to be around. Sometimes I have to jump on my phone and do things, like I had to put my post up yesterday, because of this and that. I'm around my kids. I kind of don't really want to try and hide that away. And once again, it feels different for me because I'm working. I'm not sitting there scrolling, but kids don't know the difference. So
absolutely,
like, I
and
wonder,
vice versa.
Right. Yeah. I wonder, like, is there any, research or any, like anecdote from you of what that has on children, what impact it has?
Oh, there's plenty of anecdotal evidence, a la the panic we're currently in. What I would say is a lot of the peer-reviewed academic research tends to look at young children, language development, A, which is blinking complicated, B, again, I'm not going to get into the mire and the weeds of this, but it's really hard to accurately measure what we are doing on our screens and how long we're on our screens. And I'm going to say this is an attempt that Apple tried to give people. Oh, we're going to give you the app that tells you how much screen time. Let me tell you, mine is completely off skew because sometimes I open something. For example, I might be listening to a YouTube video because I'm moving about the house. Technically, that will count up my hours on YouTube, but I'm listening because I'm doing something else. So the arbitrary measures that we've got at the moment are inconsistent. They rely on self-reported measures. The landscape around digital technology is like trying to measure how many times you touch your elbow per day. Okay. Now, you don't know how many times you touch your elbow until I ask you to count the amount of times you touch your elbow. What we know from research is the Hawthorne effect means that if I'm asking you to do it and other people, you'll all be watching, looking at your elbows. Did she touch your elbow? Did he touch your elbow? Have I touched my elbow? That's one of the things about self-reported measures and the space of social media, technology, screen time, you name it. A lot of it relies on self-reporting. So this is what we call a social science. We are making correlational data sound like causation where we don't have accurate results. What I can tell you is what the children tell me in the therapy office, which is, I wish my mum and dad talked to me more. Now, that used to happen before technology. I wish my parents took an interest. And one of the videos that I did is what children wish their parents knew. And what they wish they knew was their favourite colour, their favourite football team, their best friend, their favourite vegetable, fruit, whatever it is. What children are looking for, and this is the reason why we go online in many of the cases. To summarise my TED Talk, if we don't get our needs met out here, we're going to go looking for them in there. And at the moment, children, especially over the last 25 years, where both parents have to work, where there's been austerity in certain countries, where there's a need for, a large amount of income to sustain the cost of living, etc., etc., etc. Parents are busy, parents are overwhelmed. And what that's resulted in is a downstream effect of children not feeling wanted, seen, soothed, safe and secure. And so they spend their time with their peers, or they spend their time looking at what Charlie Brooker calls the black mirror. They spend their time looking in an environment, and until you ask questions, you don't know who they're talking to or why they're talking to that person. You don't know why they're engaging in a particular game. So quite often I say to people, some teenagers try to become really good at a game so they can impress the person they want to date, that they can play that game. It's not necessarily just about gaming and, in air quotes, addiction, because I don't believe in addiction to gaming and I don't believe in addiction to social media, because generally it's about socializing. Generally it's about getting your needs met.
So
and that's a professional belief.
So if they're not addicted to these things, like, would you say it's more a desire to be noticed or to be, I don't know, talented at something?
Yes.
So they double down on the game or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can relate to that, not
Football.
online, but there's, I played sport all the time. Yes, I was obsessed with sport because I love the sports, but, you do get the glory of scoring a try or getting a kick over a goal, and people see that. And now that you kind of say it like that, and, I used to do music, of course, I loved music and you get into things for it because you love it. But then after a while, you sing, you play guitar, girls like it. Like, you know what I mean? So that can kind of help you double down on it. If not anything.
I mean, yes, I learnt to become a vinyl DJ for exactly that reason, in the late 90s. When you look at why we do what we do, and there is a book that I've written called How to Manage Your Gaming and Social Media Habits, the section that talks about why we do what we do is, why do you pick up your device? Well, you might have just had a row with your boss, your partner, you might be feeling lonely, you want to tell your friend that really exciting thing that happened. It's all about connection. It's all about, I want to share something with somebody, or I want somebody to share something with me, so I'm seen, so I'm noticed, so I'm important, and my needs are met which all boil down to attachment needs, which are primary within every single human being.
Yeah, I love how it comes full circle because it feels more digestible as a parent, as a husband, as a friend, or as anyone who can see people dealing with social media and or let's say gaming or things like that, things that they may be addicted to. It just feels like it kind of just feels like people need a good hug or people need a good conversation, a good sit down. They need a more kind of like a human interaction.
Yeah. And this is why I say, so meet the needs of the children when they're under 3, meet the needs. And that's really difficult for parents at the minute because we're overworked, we're overtired, there's so many issues for us. And I don't find this, you gave them the damn devices, it's your fault approach, because what that's done is created shame. It's created fear. And what we generally do in that state is we become proactive because we can move from sadness and shame into anger. And this is why the parents are now saying, well, government, you need to do something. And here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a complex problem, like, especially with the parenting thing. Like, I know people that, like, have decided not to have children simply because they feel like it's just out of reach. And I think that's becoming more common. I'm not sure the statistics on it, but the people that are around me, like I'm hearing of it more and more where, when I was younger, maybe I just wasn't interested in it because, when you're a kid, you're not really thinking of birth rates or, who's having kids or not. But it seems to be more popular, that people are kind of like, well, I'm just getting by myself. I don't think I can actually bring a kid into this world. And then if you do, like, you're right, like you have to find a way to make it work. You're either both working, then you put them in daycare. Daycare can be really expensive. It's pretty much someone's salary. So you're like, well, do I do daycare or do I just look after them myself? Do I get other people to raise them while I go to work? Or do I, all these conversations are kind of popping up and it feels like there's no real, I don't know, solution. And I'm not asking you for the answers, of the world, for the problems of the world, but it does feel quite overwhelming, as a young parent myself with friends, with, people that I know that are going through it. Obviously I'm doing my best and me and my wife have our way of doing things that we're doing, but, it is a struggle. Like there's a lot of, people struggling.
Oh yeah. And also the other part to say is we can be really compassionate. I have screwed up my parenting many a time. I screwed up in terms of not knowing that my children would be exposed to things in 2010 when they went to school. And part of me was like, well, you're a blinking, tech person doing this and sorting it all out. Why did you not think of that? Because I, at the time, made an assumption as a fairly early parent that other people might think about the world like I did, which is that we want to protect children. And the example I gave in some training today is in 2009, my youngest child said, I want to play on Call of Duty. I said, absolutely not, even though I'd got a promo copy. And I was sitting there going, you can't touch it. You can't touch it. Later on that day, he came home and said, well, I've played on it anyway because I went to so-and-so's house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we had conversations about why I didn't want him to play on it, what my thoughts were, what he'd thought about the game, what it was that he'd done on the game. Again, because I'd played it, so I understood it. And the conversation went along kind of along the lines of, well, so-and-so's mum says he can play it because she doesn't care about him. And I thought, whoa, is it that she doesn't care about him or she doesn't understand what the game is? So we could unpick that. We could say, well, what was that about? Well, there are some parents who don't care what their children play on. There are some parents who don't care that their children are accessing pornography or that they're accessing graphic media. Some children are actively looking for it. Some children happen upon it.
So, yeah. So, like, I explained to you that I used to game as a younger, let's say teenager. Like, I'm a younger brother, so I grew up with my brother playing it. And obviously you just want to do what your brother's doing. And I was just, watching him and I would wait outside his door when he was in the morning. I'd wake up early and just sit by his door to try hear like the buttons, like clicking just so I could go and like, I was just happy watching. And then when I got old enough and I played with him and then I played with my friends and stuff like that, I enjoyed it. And it was actually a way that me and my mates, like we would hang out as well at school and do all that kind of stuff. But we would have these big gaming sessions as well would start at 10 p.m., 9
Yeah.
p.m. and just go till the sun came up. But I actually look back at those memories and think it was like, we often talk about it now. Like, man, that was like so fun. You got no responsibility. You're just a kid. And like, we would go to our friend's house and play. But it was never really like, I use addiction in air quotes now because, you know, of what you said previously, but I was never like, I have to do it. I was never sacrificing homework or not going to sports because I just wanted to game.
Yeah.
I never got that deep into it. Maybe, maybe I just wasn't good enough, but I didn't get hooked that much. But I see adults now playing games and they have children as well and like a busy life, you know, a busy career and all this stuff. And I was saying that, you know, that I wanted to ask you, I do wonder of like the implications of that. Like, sure, we need downtime and all that stuff. And maybe that's it for you. But I feel like sometimes there's an element of, and this is just my take, of you kind of almost, it's really easy to make progress or feel like you're moving forward or like you have a sense of, or like brotherhood and like, you know, you can talk with your mates online or you feel like you're progressing. Whereas sometimes in life, in the real world, it's kind of hard to make progress. You have to work at things and it's quite hard, where I feel like sometimes gaming can be like almost like a quick hit of that.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you where my head's just gone. Right.
I'm happy to be corrected.
No, because I listen to the bro podcasts, because I listen to and I spend my time going right the way across. I have challenged, and I certainly challenge this when I'm talking to young men in this space. Chris Williamson has what he calls the male sedation hypothesis, right? Which is
I know what that is.
Men, yeah. No. Let me tell you, okay, there are some young men who are not, who are meeting their needs through gaming or pornography, for example, right? But what you talked about is a little bit like, so I wrote a blog a long time ago called Internet Hanging Out with Your Mates Disorder, because essentially that's what we're doing. We're creating disorders and problems for things that aren't necessarily so, right? What I find is some young people, because gamers are now 50-50 split in terms of gender. A lot of the research is showing that, you know, girls play just as much as boys. They play different types of games in some instances. But this idea that we are playing games has different modus operandi, has a different reason you were hanging out with your mates. It didn't impede into your life and cause a problem. So we have terms like problematic gaming. There is the World Health Organization put into the ICD after a lot of contestment and still argument that gaming disorder, so not gaming addiction, gaming disorder has to be present for over a year. It has to be a significant problem. In I think it's Japan, there is an issue called hikokimori, which is generally the firstborn male takes himself off to his room, locks the door, doesn't come out. And this is what some parents will report their teenage boys are like, for example. But actually, we're talking about, why is somebody gaming? Generally, it's to get better at a game, to gain mastery. Yes, you get those small wins. And those small wins don't always generalize to everyday settings in life. Absolutely not. This is where I see the content online talking about it's dopamine hits. It's not necessarily dopamine hits, because you actually get more pursuit in I'm going to go home and play that game than you would do in playing the game. I'm going to get to the next level is more of a dopamine hit than actually achieving the next level. So we've got the idea around this one particular neurotransmitter, ask about face, really, in this space at the minute. What I'm finding is right now there's a lot of lethargy, melancholy, depression. There's not really a passion from a lot of young people to become something of value, because what we do as a society is we berate young people, we tell them that they're useless, they don't know anything, they have to abide by certain rules. And right now, they can spend their time looking on the internet, being told AI is going to replace your jobs. You need to learn your 15 times table for what reason? And what the children will say to me is, when am I going to use algebra, Kath? I say, well, if you're building a staircase, you know, you might need Pythagoras' theorem to work out how the angle is going to go on the banister. But aside from that, unless you're an engineer, you're probably not. So what's the point in learning it when I could be? And they see, again, a space where they can go and earn lots of money, they can share their information, they can stream a game and do something that they enjoy, only to be told, loser. So
Hmm.
we're in a space at the minute where young people don't have the passion and desire to become anything of value because we as the adults are not providing them with that route.
So once again, come back down to checking in on the kids, supporting them, finding their interests, giving them opportunities to kind of develop that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
yeah, it's it's funny once again because I like my job didn't exist, let's say 15 years ago. Like I'm an online coach. Like I started face to face personal training, but I went like I went online. So like I can't sit here on my high horse and be like social media is bad, don't do it, because it's like, well, now I've like I'm on it a lot, and it's like it's what I do. So like I wasn't coming from a like, oh, gamers are losers type of perspective. I guess my question was like, and it was great that you outlined it, was, you know, I guess why are people doing it, and does it actually affect them in a negative way? Like I thought, like I had some of that bro energy behind me, just because you know, like when you hear it first off, you go, oh, that sounds pretty correct. You know, it sounds like, and I saw some of myself in it. I think that's why, because you know, you like at
Oh,
school,
yeah.
I would do that and be like, oh, this is, you know, instead of doing other stuff, I would do that because it's fun. But I would sit in a room with my mates, like, and we would all play on the same screen. So for me, I felt like it was a bit better than playing online. But it's kind of, I don't know, it feels similar.
I mean, yes, there's the main reason. Why do we do anything, right? Well, if there's fun in the activity, we call that play, right? So digital play, and
Mm,
I made this point on an Instagram post the other day. Digital play is different, it is not less. And what we tend to do is go, well, it's not the same as. Okay, children do take risks in these online environments, which is the same as when they're taking risks, climbing trees, etc.,
mm,
etc. But here's the thing. Why does anybody play sport? Because it feels good. There's an element of fun. We wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun. There's an element
mm,
of becoming a master of a particular thing. So whether that's martial arts, whether it's sports, whether it's dance, whether it's music, those are creative passions for a lot of people. And what I tend to see is people will talk about, but that's not creative. What I'm going to come back to, and I'm going to do a little bit of a circle here, is for some people, and I'm just thinking about the example you gave. I'm going to take you back to the kind of 1950s when there was one television in a house, and I'm going to kind of paint a picture that's a little bit sepia of the dad who's been at work all day long. He lives in a low socioeconomic status area, and he comes home and he says to the kids, don't bother me, I'm going to watch television, cracks open a can, and he sits and watches television. Okay? That can be the same as a father who comes home and says, I just need time on whatever game it is, picks up the iPad, picks up the controller, picks up the TV remote, and doesn't interact with the children. Yes, it causes a problem. It's a big problem. But it isn't the technology that's the problem. I would be saying, okay, what is going on for that father? What is going on in his life where he struggles to connect with his family? Because it isn't about the technology, it isn't about the game. So, this idea that we can say, well, it's because he's addicted to gaming might not necessarily be so. It might be more
mm,
about he doesn't know how to talk to his children, he doesn't understand his children, or he wasn't given those skills by his father, or he believes he's a crap father in most cases because he's not spending time with, and the parent that he sees having the fun with the child is directly in front of him, and he thinks, why don't my children talk to me like that? And often we don't go beyond what we can visually see at a first glance. We tend to make those stereotypical reflections. And
mm.
yes, for some people, spending their time watching pornography is fun. For some people, watching pornography is about curiosity. For some people, it's about mind-numbing. I can't cope with the day. The same way that people might use alcohol, cigarettes, exercise. For some people, it might be gaming. And for some people, it might be gaming and pornography.
Yeah. I guess that was my full curiosity was, what are the impacts of it? And, I love like this common motif is just kind of coming back of like what is happening on the human level. And that's just kind of being manifested in the online world as I guess for some people, like an escape of like, well, yeah, I think I'm a crap father. I'm just going to go scroll online and just have a laugh because I feel like a failure, or I'm going to go and do this and that. It's been really cool to kind of come back to a really, like a lesson that we can take away, which has been awesome. I had a ton of things that I also wanted to cover, so maybe we will do part 2 with no interruptions in the middle, and we'll run it back. But I like to ask these final 3 questions, which is a book, a quote, and a habit that have helped you to become a better person. Right? I started this podcast and called the Better with Brock podcast mainly because I'm very obsessed with becoming better. Obviously, fitness is a big part of it for me, but it's also, like why I love what you do and what you talk about, because it's about becoming better. Now, as a father, that's how I can become better in this way as well. So, yeah, a book, a quote, and a habit that help you to become better.
Okay. I am, I would certainly say I am a major fan of Terry Pratchett. And right now, I think the book that I would say is probably The Truth, in terms of that's going to help you understand mainstream media, the way that AI is changing the way we understand the world for truth. It is one of the many books that he's written, and it does sit kind of in the middle towards the end of his collection before he died a couple of years ago. Quote, the one that's helped me came from when I did martial arts as a young child, which is bend like a willow, don't fight like an oak. So it's about resilience and moving with whatever life throws at you. Now, I would say that's about being in the window of tolerance and being regulated and so on and so forth. And certainly the habit that I would say, when people ask me that, it's like, what habit? I do lots of them. I'm going to go for Rick Hanson's Just One Thing. So Rick Hanson is a neuroscientist. This is the same exercise you'll find in meditation spaces. And it's an exercise of gratitude. So every day I'm grateful for just one thing. But I make it about something that isn't what I would say the glib, the ordinary. So I'm really grateful that I live in a house where my toilet flushes. Okay? Because let me tell you, if it didn't flush, it wouldn't be very nice. Okay, so I'm really grateful somebody invented the fact that we can flush a toilet and that I don't have to go outside in the outhouses. And so, yeah, I make it about something where I go, okay, don't make it about the cup of tea in the morning or the fact that you've opened your eye. Don't do meta. Don't do glib. Pick something. Sometimes, you know what? The toilet flushed. That's brilliant. I live in a house where a toilet flushes. Oh, I am so grateful for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a similar thing. So I have a gratitude practice. It's very cheesy. I started it when I was 14 and I've just kind of run with it because it helps me. But there's an aspect of that where I list these things that are like kind of like fundamentals, that kind of reset me. And it's like those things. Not like I could add my toilet flushes, but it's like I have food on the table type of thing. I have shoes on my feet. I have clothes on my body.
Yeah.
I have money in my wallet. I have thoughts in my brain. Like these are just like I have kind of like it's almost like a speech. Like there's a few, like maybe 20 things that I rattle off that kind of like really, like I traveled to Bali back in, I think it was 2018, and that, like I'd never been to a third world country before. I hadn't traveled much. And when I went there, I was like really impacted by what I have in Australia and what I had in New Zealand growing up. And I was like, man, these, like I had a driver, and he was just so grateful, and he would drive me around all day and then just kind of sit in this car and wait. and he was so happy. And I was like, how are you so happy? Like, what's going on here? You know, and he would just eat his, like, he would sit there with like his lunch was just like a thing of rice. And like, I felt bad because of all the kind of luxury I had in my life that I didn't know that I had. And,
Yeah.
and I remember asking him one time, sorry to go on a rant, you know, for a little bit, but like, I think we're talking about clothes, and I said, "Oh, like that's a cool t-shirt," and he goes, "Oh, thanks." You know, a previous person bought it for him, that like a client of his that he drove around, and I was like, and he goes, "I like it because it's white," and I was like, "Well, what do you like about it being white?" And he goes, "I like it because white is clean," and I never thought of putting on a white t-shirt because it's clean before. So when I left, at the hotel that I was staying at, they had like a little shop, and I bought him like this white dress shirt, and I gave it to him when I left, and he was like very emotional, you know, and then I left, and then he sent me a photo on WhatsApp, and he was wearing it at church with his family. And that level of gratitude, that, like, you know, we put on a white shirt just because, I don't know, it's a black tie event, or that's just what we want to wear that day, but we don't put it on because we think it's clean, because there's areas in our life and we're surrounded by dirt and dirtiness. So yeah, I really love that element of gratitude. And I think, like, I like to start my day with it. It really helps you feel kind of like bulletproof and grateful, and walk through the day with, well, it helps me to stay positive, like positive thinking, and
Yeah. Well,
and
it's
just not to,
incredible. Yeah. It's incredible. And what I find so lovely about that is you placed yourself in his shoes. So we call this theory of mind as well as empathy. What you did is you went, okay, I can see how he receives kindness and care and connection. And I want to do the same for him, because actually what he'd given you is an experience of, you know, pretty much take a look around yourself, sunshine, because sometimes you need to really see what life is like. Life is unfair. And that can be hard for a lot of people because, and I'm just going to quote Irvin Yalom here, many of us are frightened to stare. I'm not saying do this, okay? Do not stare at the sun. I know Andrew Huberman talks about sunlight, not staring at the sun. But Irvin Yalom talks about we don't want to stare at the sun because that reminds us of our finite life on earth, etc., etc. But oh my goodness, we don't all get the same opportunities. We don't all get the same chances. And right now, Brock, right, there is a world of pain, of people being tortured and killed. We are so lucky, and look at what we're doing. We are talking on technology at whatever time, you know, it is on our 15th, 100th attempt of trying to stick with a stable internet connection and my technology. But isn't that something to be appreciative of, in terms
yeah,
of, aren't we privileged, even though I did nothing but witter about this when it broke off, in terms of I pay a lot for this blinking internet and it's not sticking to what it's supposed to, and my expectations were wobbled, and yeah, but I'm really lucky. I'm really lucky that I get to do what I do, and that I get to help, and I get to write books. And that's one of the reasons why I'm churning them out at the rate that I am doing at the minute, because I know I have to share this.
yeah, it's a very important time. Like, it's where, like we talked about, it's where AI is really starting to, they're putting ads in it. They're, like, technology is advancing really quick at a faster rate than we are kind of adapting as humans, and as parents, and
Yeah.
as everyone that we are. So, Catherine, thank you so much. Like I said, I really love your work. I think it's super important. I'd love to have you on again to talk about some other things, and hear your takes on it. Maybe we can organize it later on in the year. But thank you so much. Your work's great. Love what you do, and it's been great to chat. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you.